Okay. I will call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Subcommittee to order. Roll call, I guess. Excuse me. Whichever you can, if you'd like.
All right, so our roll call in the room. Dawn Bodyfelt.
Here.
Jamie Martin is absent. Leslie Martin.
Here.
Walt Martin.
Here.
Marcia Patrick.
Here.
That is everybody in the room. Online. Elena Chardier.
Here.
Vivian Rojas.
Here.
And looks like we do not have Allison anymore. We'll see if she signs back on. Right, and for staff in attendance, we have City Manager Gagel and City Clerk Dent.
Okay. Sounds like you guys made it as far as gas manufacturer storage. Am I correct on?
Yes,
Or-
correct.
Okay,
Would you like me to share my screen and we can continue through it, or
yes.
we can do a quick review through what we've gone through if that's helpful for those who weren't here? It's up to you on how comfortable you feel with continuing on.
I think we should just go ahead and
Continue.
start where we left off. Yeah.
Okay. And then if anything comes up, or if you want to share your notes with us afterwards, let us know.
Okay.
Mhm. I'm just making it complicated. Okay, so we have this handy table that Planning Commission chairs Randy Sweet put together for us. And at the last meeting, we were able to get through the first 4 pages. And during those pages, we had members of the committee. We talked about each land use type, the definition, if it was permitted, not permitted, secondary or conditional use. Whether it was fine the way it was, status quo as a yes, or whether there's more discussion that was needed, and then if there were comments and notes based on that discussion. So you should all have that in your packet, and please let us know if you have anything further to add to that. But we made it all the way down to gas manufacture and storage. So with that, gas manufacturer storage, and there's a quotations was public utility and approved fuel storage. So it did have a name change in recent history. And definition 40 is, or the definition was number 40, gas manufacture and storage, the surface use of lands used in the production and mechanical transformation or the chemical transformation of hydrocarbon gas, and includes uses for gas conditioning, compressor stations, storage, which means surface uses necessary for storage of produced or non-native natural gas. And in the commercial business district, this is not permitted.
Reasonable to me.
Okay.
I'm okay with that too.
Okay, we'll mark that as a yes then. Unless there's any other differing opinions.
Nope, mine was the same.
Okay. Anybody online?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay,
Vivian.
thank you. The next one then is seafood processing. This is definition 98, the preparing of product associated with fish and fish products for shipping to the final customer. This is marked as conditional use. And again, for those who weren't here at the last meeting, conditional use has a public notice permitting process, which means that the use has to meet certain conditions for conditional use, and public news notice is provided to properties within 300 feet. So while it may be allowable, there's a more public process, or if there's additional permits that are needed, more licensing information, it allows us to go through that process in the public before that use is permitted.
This is Vivian. I am in favor of leave it as conditional. I think it leaves the door open. We have the old cannery site, and that's industrial, I believe. But I think leaving it as a conditional, it again, as I said, leaves the door open for consideration. Thank you.
But the old, excuse me, the old cannery site, isn't that in industrial?
Yes.
Industrial, right?
Yeah. So to have this in commercial business, seafood processing, wouldn't that be? I don't know. Personally, I would say no to not have it there.
We talked a lot at the last meeting about economies of scale and
Right.
what that looks like if somebody was like, for instance, smoking fish or canning fish, some kind of, smaller processing for a few items, not just fish, but we talked about even for manufacturing versus, smaller manufacturing versus larger manufacturing. So maybe with that, that could use further evaluation and definition of what that looks like in that zone. Or do you see any use for that kind of processing?
So
If
I
I
don't.
may,
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go
oh,
ahead.
I
Viv.
just, yeah, I was just gonna say, if I may, it would, in my mind, conditional consideration of storefront, it could be kelp processing, making kelp powder. I'm not seeing it as a big seafood processing. That to me belongs in the industrial park area. But as far as a seafood processing, as the city manager said, a small storefront selling, processed smoked fish or kelp or whatever. That's what I'm envisioning, not a processing plant.
But this says seafood processing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see where you're coming from, and that would be a yes for me, but have somebody processing smelly fish and smelly smoke right there, right in the middle of everybody's other businesses, I don't think that should even be conditional.
Do we change the title? Instead of saying seafood processing, do we change that into a small business storefront type of thing? I don't know, just an idea.
Yeah.
I think
We're amenable.
this is Dawn. I think some of the confusion is definitely what we found in other things, and it comes with the definition. And this definition is very vague. And I guess to me, it can mean lots of things to lots of different people, depending on what kind of business they're wanting to go into. But the definition just isn't clear.
Mhm.
And it's back to the scaling of things. And I mean, because one of the things that lots of people that come to this town always ask for is, why don't you have a fish market? And this right here would fall under that. Because if you're packaging and vacuum sealing fish, then you're saying if you're going to use seafood processing with this definition, it would be conditional.
Yes,
Because
I'd like, oh, sorry, Dawn.
with fish and fish products for shipping to the final customer. So, I mean, if you were even sealing fish, preparing a product associated with fish and fish products for shipping. So the minute that you ship it, you fall under this. I think we have people that do that right now.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, also, so, even filleting a fish, you have to, if it's salmon, you have to have a processor's license. So I would say that there's plenty of small businesses, even if it was somebody that just wanted to get a processor's license and sell a few fish at the farmer's market, that's going to fall under this. Sorry.
So this is, Dawn, my opinion would be that we need to revisit this definition and maybe,
Maybe possibly
sure that
change
we-
the wording.
right, that,
This is Walt, and I was just talking to someone the other day that wanted to do these little smoked sausages with reindeer and different things. And I would sure hate to see someone put a lid on that. You know, but I don't want to see a big fish processing plant go downtown too. So I think it needs to be redefined so that these little small things can be accounted for without a lot of headache getting a
Right.
permit
You
to
don't want,
do it.
you don't want somebody with a fish processing plant going in right there in the middle of Main Street and having, pumping their waste out into the harbor or something.
Correct, but
So
these little deals, I mean, we're trying to build a market here for people that do come here. And when I came to Alaska, that's the first thing I'm looking for is like, well, where can I get some canned smoked fish or
Right.
those sort of things? And people look for that when they come to Alaska and when they come here.
I don't know that I would even want anybody smoking though on Main Street. I mean, it's
Well, maybe on
smelly.
a small scale. I mean, it's not much different than a restaurant, smoking barbecue or something
Right.
else, which
Mhm.
I would kind of fit it under that. But anyway, I think we are in a fishing village and we certainly don't want to restrict one of the most important things we have here,
Right.
in my opinion.
Right.
and I think that we'd be able to easily define those two things from seafood processing by scale, just by regulation. I don't think it'll. I'm looking it up right now. I think for sure we need to be careful on that.
Yeah. Is there is there a difference between seafood retail and like an actual?
Well, I think that there will be a difference in seafood processing based on maybe quantities and amount of water and discharge, but I'm not positive, so. I think it's just one of those things that we just need to revisit the definition. Is that how we're gonna do it, just like we did with the other ones? But I'll look at and see what this, how the state of Alaska.
Okay. Would you guys like me to move on to the next one and Dawn can provide that later? Either before the next meeting or if it comes up during this meeting. That's really the goal. Once we get through these is we'll have our marching orders to be able to go back as staff and start pulling state regulations and international building codes and various sources that impact how we operate here in the city to be able to provide more whole recommendations to that at the upcoming meeting. So with that, the next one is storage yard, and this is definition 104. A lot used primarily for the storage of operational vehicles, construction equipment, construction materials, or other tangible materials and equipment. And currently this is not permitted in the commercial business district. Oh, I think I skipped one, sorry.
It's
Go.
kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like a facility or a yard.
Yeah, so one's a building storage facility, a building or structure used for renting or leasing of storage space to consumers for the purpose of storing and removing personal property. And I believe there was some suggestion or some small discussion on this at the last meeting.
Yeah, there was another one prior to that
It was for
we
the
all
boat.
agreed that we wanted to allow a certain amount of like, if we had an extra little place for mini warehouse or something small.
Which one was that? Well,
I'd have to go back, but I know we discussed it. And it's a lot like this.
But I think it's an important discussion because I think that's what we're trying to do is pare this down and
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
what's it was. I remember it too. Was it accessory structure? Is that how that came up, maybe?
I guess number 69, mini storage facility.
Yeah,
It's temporarily a no, and we were gonna revisit to see if it maybe be
Okay.
conditional or something. It was on, yeah, the definition 69. Mini storage facility.
Where is it on the land use? table?
It'd be under marine equipment and sales, in between that and utility public facility.
On the backside of the page we're on right now. At the bottom.
Yeah, it's marine equipment sales up there, and then the next one is mini storage facility.
Oh, got it.
yeah, it was the mini storage. This looks like it falls right under the same,
Yeah,
you know, people's personal property and
So I can make a note to revisit along with mini storage facility.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think for sure to reference that so that we don't forget about it.
This is Vivian. Actually, when I read that over, I saw that there was a mini storage concept that people want to have. I'm not so sure if I actually feel. I know that having mini storages are handy and convenient, but I'm not sure if that belongs on the waterfront or in the business district. But to go back and revisit it, I'm okay with all three: the storage facility, storage yard. I really don't think they belong on our front street. There's plenty of other places in industrial and other places off the main street, but
Hey guys, this is Elena. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Elena.
Hi, sorry, not to back up, but I just had another thought hit me, which is that if we did not allow seafood processing, that would affect anybody who runs a charter business in the summer because they have to have that available to run the charter business. And I don't think we have any charter businesses running out of the commercial business district right now, but we have in the past. That's all.
So are we gonna lump all of this storage and freight storage and warehouse and wholesale outlets? Are we gonna lump all of that into that for the discussion?
We could do that, yeah.
Because I mean, so much of that is looking like it's all the same. I don't think there's any point in going through each
Yeah.
single one.
Storage facility, storage yard, freight storage, or staging for transportation.
Is everybody in agreement with that? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. What about warehouse, a building or structure used for storage of commercial goods, wares, and merchandise that will be processed, sold, or otherwise disposed of off premises? Still similar category?
I think all of that.
Yeah, that
So-
one is a little bit different in my opinion than these others. Because a warehouse. That. A building or structure used for the storage of commercial goods, wares, and merchandise. So I think we need to be a little bit careful about that one because there is. Maybe the need for some of these businesses to have that stuff available. For their ongoing businesses that are open on a daily basis.
Sure, but we should consider, if it's incidental or secondary, does that need to be separated.
Storage of commercial goods, wares, merchandise that will be processed, sold, or otherwise disposed of. Oh,
Incidental or secondary
Yeah.
to a business,
mhm,
just something to consider.
right. I just think it's a little bit different than the other ones. Because we're talking about the sale of goods here, and with the other items, it's not the sale of goods.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with that. Both the warehouse and the warehouse outlet.
Which maybe those two are the two that could be combined somehow.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think maybe those two, let's bring those back to see if we need to try to combine those two somehow.
Because one of them is a no and the other one is conditional.
Yeah,
Um,
and they're very similar.
Well, and then also, we
yeah.
remembered there's also wholesale business.
Right. But that to me is even different.
Different, okay.
These.
Anything else on warehouse or wholesale outlets? We are cruising along today. So under public institutions, other, and we talked about removing the headings in the future for the confusion. But we have airport compatible uses, and so some of these things, for instance, airport compatible uses is more specific to the airport area, but there could be uses for it in the commercial business district. Right now, it's listed as conditional. And the definition for is uses which include but are not limited to hangars, fixed base operators, aircraft repair and manufacturing, aircraft sales, and other uses approved by the Seldovia Municipal Code, the Federal Aviation Administration's regulations, and compatible with the comprehensive plan. Which is
I
a
would,
lot.
yeah, I'm a little bit confused, Vivian. I'm a little bit confused by item 4, the description uses which include but are not limited to hangars, etc.
Mhm.
I'm trying to see how that associates with our business district. I mean, as far as anyhow, to me, when I read that, I'm thinking, are they saying that hangars are okay to have in our main street area? But what we've had in the past years ago, Cook Inlet Aviation had an office where people would come in and make reservations or communicate about their travels in and out of Seldovia back in the day. So having, anyhow, that's confusing to me. I'm not sure if anybody else is confused by what that's saying is okay to have in our business district or not.
Well, this is Dawn. I think that the reason maybe that language is in there is because it's not just a definition that is used purely for the business district. It's a definition that's used across all of the uses. So probably the reason those other items are in there is because they need to be in there for the other uses. Is how I would understand that.
Yeah, Heidi, how do we have that actually? What do we in our coming out of the city office? How are we interpreting that?
I believe that it is in there for primarily the airport, but it could use looking at because it is a kind of confusing definition, especially with the other uses approved by Seldovia Municipal Code, the Federal Aviation Administration's regulations, the comprehensive plan. So maybe this is something that needs to be pulled out or reevaluated, specific to the airport and regulations occurring in that area, knowing that if somebody wanted to operate sales for airport or for an air service or even sales for a charter service, that would fall under office and would be an allowable service.
Right. Maybe it's just the title, the public institutions, other is why it's followed on this page.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So we can definitely reevaluate that.
It looks like a definition that was used in a much bigger city.
Oh. It's definitely an older definition. So moving on to churches, a building or structure in which persons regularly assemble for worship, ceremonies, rituals, and education pertaining to a particular system of beliefs. The term church includes a synagogue or temple, and that is a conditional use for the commercial business district.
Why wouldn't it be permitted? I mean, what would be the detriment in a commercial area? I mean, where is it permitted in Sylvia?
That's a great question.
Right. It is permitted in waterfront, commercial, residential. It is permitted in commercial district. It is permitted in commercial residential.
I think, yeah, because we used to have a church, actually. The old Methodist church is the building up on the hill by the Russian Orthodox Church. That used to be a church. Over by in our area, Walt, there was a church in the hill there. But I'm not really sure if in our definitions, if a church would be in our business district. I mean, there's, I mean, it's written here, so that's why I agree, conditional. I don't think it would be, I mean, there's conditional reasons why or why not you would not have it in their business district. Not really sure if it follows the definition of our business district.
Well, I would be in favor of making that permissible without a condition.
I think we can bring that back to evaluate or discuss further.
I think we need to also look at the legal part of that.
Hi, this is Elena. I would think the only condition would probably be parking because you need considerable parking. Other than that, I also think it should be permitted.
It says here that's already permitted in the commercial district, just conditional in the commercial business district. Is that what the deal is? I think churches should be anywhere they want to be. Yeah.
Is there an issue with how far it can be from places that serve alcohol? That might be part of what the
Yeah.
conditional.
Depends on
Probably.
what type of religion it is.
Yeah, because you gotta think, I mean, church can be,
Lots of things.
there's a wide variety of things that qualify as churches.
I think you're right, Liz, that it probably has a lot to do with how much parking and you know, 'cause it
Which-
would be kind of hard to,
Fall under
Even the-
something else.
yeah, even the church on the hill, there's not a whole lot of parking, you know, so I think that's important to you, maybe that's why.
The thing you have to consider though is that a church, anybody can have a church and you can't, I don't think it's good to just say that the Sylvia Bible Chapel or the Catholic Church or a synagogue or whatever, those are not the only types of churches that you have. So if you open it up and let anybody have a church, you're opening it up for any religion in the world. And you have to consider that there are many, many, many that you might not want on Main Street, Sylvia. So
Then you get into that discrimination and that's not something you
That's not-
cannot do.
No, so
So,
that's,
yeah.
that's why I'm sure that it is conditional. Probably. Might be best to leave it alone.
Okay, sounds like that one needs further discussion. There's no other thoughts on it immediately. We'll go to clinics. A healthcare facility that is primarily devoted to the care of outpatients. Clinics can be privately operated or publicly managed and funded, and typically cover the primary healthcare needs of the populations and local communities, in contrast to larger hospitals, which offer specialized treatments and admit inpatients for overnight stays, or outpatient clinic or ambulatory care clinic, and currently it is permitted in the commercial business district.
I'm fine. We already have them, don't we?
Not in the commercial business.
That isn't in there? Oh, okay.
But they could.
Well, we have a dog clinic, so I would think a human clinic would be okay too.
I need 24-hour clinic a couple times.
I mean, I guess it doesn't actually specify human, so that's a good point. So everybody okay with that remaining permitted?
Yes.
Okay. Leave that one be. Fraternal organizations, a group of people formally organized for a common object, purpose, or interest, usually cultural, religious, or entertainment, that conducts regular meetings and has written membership requirements, and that is conditional. If I was gonna guess, that definition's probably been here for a very long time. As well.
And having things that's conditional gives leadway in that you can interpret and work with what the application is. So I'm okay leaving it conditional, and can the definition maybe get some work, of course.
I'm good with leaving it conditional.
Anybody else? Okay, next one then is Parks and Recreation. Park is a tract of land designated by a public entity for the enjoyment of public and generally used for active and passive recreational activities and recreation, leisure activities, sometimes requiring equipment and taking place at prescribed places, sites, parks, or fields. It can include active recreation such as structured individual or team activities requiring the use of special facilities, courses, fields, or equipment, or passive recreation such as activities that do not require prepared facilities such as wildlife and bird viewing, observing and photographing nature, picnicking, and walking. As conditional.
I'm okay with conditional. Good, Vivian.
Anybody else? It's a lot of words, yeah.
Yeah, I guess, to me, it's not, if we're trying to pare things down and make things more, it's easily understandable and clearer, this doesn't do it for me.
Mhm.
And it,
So there was some discussion about an ice rink. How would that fit into that in this?
It's going
right,
into-
and why would that be, I mean, if somebody wanted to open an ice rink in the commercial business district and they got all their appropriate building permits, why in the world would that be conditional? I mean, it's it's always easy to slap the conditional on it and move on, but then that just gets, all you're doing at that point is you're creating yourself another issue down the road.
So we
So
do.
there's some reasons for it, I agree,
Mhm.
to have the conditional, but not.
Yeah, so there is a definition of land use for commercial recreation, which is a recreation facility operated as a business and open to the public for a fee, especially for recreational participation, such as, but not limited to arcades, bowling, dance club, laser tag, paintball, and skate park. I could see why, like, if the ice skating rink is free, which it would be, it wouldn't fall under that definition and maybe more under this I think this is more focus of it's a public purpose. And so maybe that needs to be defined better. The Parks and Recreation as a public purpose. Does that, are
And
you
the
guys
ice,
tracking with me?
Maybe free or as a, I mean,
Does say designated by a public entity, For
Okay, so it
enjoyment of the
is
public.
designated by a public.
the park
entity.
part, and then recreation is the second definition.
So I could see how that could be reworked, the definition itself. And then. So then that brings to question, then if a public entity such as the borough or the city or Sylvia Village Tribe, a government entity, public entity wanted to open up some kind of a recreational site, is that permitted or not in the commercial business district?
well, we let the little kids park be there, right? Wasn't, or is that city property?
Kids Park is technically in a right of way. But
Okay.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it could be permitted.
I mean, this ice skating ring that we're talking about on the other side in the industrial park area. On the other
Right.
side,
and it's permitted there anyways.
right. So, yeah, I think this Parks and Recreation can be reworded, especially the recreation part, reworded, less words, and conditional, it leaves it open that it can be discussed. They can bring a business plan forward and then it can be analyzed at that point, as long as we word this a little bit more concise. I mean, when I think of recreation, I think about, okay, people walking around bird viewing off the harbor, looking around, photographs, picnicking. I guess I don't jump to the idea that people are going to be building structures, permanent structures. That's in my mind.
You could have like bird viewing platform or something,
Yeah, right. Yeah, if this, if we get a grant, can extend the old boardwalk in front of the harbor and continue down the whole, waterfront there. And it's this, what this says is exactly what that would be used for.
So if I look at the commercial recreation definition, and like I read, I feel like a big difference between the two is being public versus a business entity. But other than that, I mean, recreation could be considered all of those things: arcades, bowling alley, dance club, laser tag, paintball, skate park, bird viewing,
And I don't
a
think that,
park,
right, and if a private person purchases a piece of property, I don't think that it should be conditional of whether or not you can do any of those things there.
and it's not for commercial recreation. So this definition is specific to a public entity, and that's the difference that needs to be kept in mind. So a private individual,
So if.
it is permitted.
Got it.
That should a public entity have the same open or same status?
Heidi, you cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I was just saying, with looking at the commercial recreation definition, I think the two big differences being that the Parks and Recreation is public specific and commercial recreation is private or business specific. And so really that's the consideration with this definition of whether it's permitted or not is it's a public entity permitted to utilize a portion of land in the district for this purpose.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So that one could almost be left out.
Well, you have to think about the other
Except they have
districts.
to, the reason, that's what she was just saying, the reason that it's in there is for the other districts as well. So when we're looking at these definitions, we have to remember that they might serve a purpose in some of the other districts. And the other.
I see what you, yeah,
Industrial's right
Gotcha.
next to it.
Right.
okay, I missed that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I tell myself that at the time and then I just missed it, so.
Okay. So we can still, we'll look at wording it and come back around to that. Cause it definitely seems like there's some confusion with it, so I'll make a note of that. And if there isn't anything else for that one, the next one is schools. Any public, religious or nonprofit facility providing a general curriculum of academic or vocational instruction serving any or all grades between kindergarten and 12th grade. And correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, isn't that conditional across the entire? I believe it's
It is.
conditional
Yeah.
across the entire land use table. That way there's a public process and input and deeper look into regulations and licensing and
Can I ask, point out one thing that maybe could be added to it though, because you have vocational schools, flight school, different trades. So you have to. Okay.
Yeah, it says a vocational instruction, but we can make sure we give out some of those examples.
Okay.
Vocational
I'm
instruction,
sorry, I didn't hear vocational when you read it.
i.e. flight schools. Vortex.
So I think that the kind of schools that Marcia is talking about does not fit within here necessarily, because and she's correct in that, because kindergarten and 12th grade, it clearly outlines an age.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I saw at
And
the
so
beginning.
then.
So
But
let's visit the kindergarten 12th, revisit that.
Yeah, I
and
think,
Vocation after high school.
right, and honestly, if you were to have, it should just be permitted if you were going to have some sort of school like you're talking about, because it's a business then, somebody's paying for it, so it is a business.
mhm.
It's, which some of these can be a business too. You can have a
Private
school that
schools.
is definitely a business, and so maybe those two things need to be clarified, or maybe there needs to be a separate. For it.
I mean, it does say any public, religious or nonprofit facility.
It seemed like you better save and accept homeschooling because that could actually fall in there.
So when they're saying public, are they do you think that's referring to like? A public. Right,
And that's when I think we get into the grade. But like you're talking about, which can happen sometime in that period, but it can also happen after that.
Mhm.
Simulators, we used to have, George used to have a simulator.
So maybe it's fine the way it is, and then business, it falls under. Yeah. Is that fair enough to everybody else?
Yep.
If you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it and change your mind, let us know. We'll leave it as it is for now. Moving down to hospitals. Mentioned in part of the definition, clinic, hospitals which offer specialized treatment. Oh, so there's not an actual definition for hospital. Hospitals which offer specialized treatments and an admit inpatients for overnight stays or outpatient clinic or ambulatory care clinic. And right now that's currently a conditional use for the commercial business district. And what does that look like? I'm just curious. The rest of the. And that's conditional across the board for all the districts as well.
Yep, I say keep it conditional.
That would be another one thing and regulations. That's good to have verification on that for several permitted use.
Yes.
Okay.
It's outside of our.
No. There isn't anything further on that, then public buildings, a building or structure that is accessible to the public and funded for public sources, typically tax money, to governmental offices, departments, commissions, or agencies of the United States or of a state or municipality that are used to conduct official business of the government and that is currently protected in the commercial district.
Permitted, I say.
Yeah, post office, that's a good point.
I think leave it. Anybody else?
I was in agreement to leave it as a permitted.
Okay. And we're getting down to the nitty gritty here, the very end, and land uses, keeping of livestock may be permitted or provided the provisions set forth are satisfied. And this one, let's see here.
Heidi, did you skip the first one? Signage uses in excess. Is that something? Is that not a sub? I can't see it. Oh, that's the definition. Signage use in.
Oh,
excess.
you're right. That is one in there. And there
It's
is
a category.
as a
Yeah.
category, and there is not a definition, so it's just signage uses in excess of those specified. I mean, there is a specification 1836 080 subsection A, and if we go to that. 80A. Signage, a combined signage serving the residential special multifamily district shall not exceed 6 square feet in area and shall be located so as not to impede visibility or traffic. B, combined signage serving conditional uses shall not exceed 20 square feet in area and shall be located so as not to impede visibility or traffic. Sure seems like maybe that would need to be.
Business?
Nope, I think I am under,
Didn't sound like commercial business.
no,
No, that's something that's conditional across the,
No, but that.
No,
what
but
you just
we're-
read didn't-
yeah, which is what
commercial business.
it referred back to that, but you're correct. That is not the right section. So under 1852 signage. So this is 1852
So you might want to
101.
make it there.
Yep. That's not the right one. 1852 110 signage, combined signage serving as the commercial business district. There's combined signage serving the commercial business district shall not exceed 15% of wall surface area as viewed from any lot line.
Which is very small, actually.
Yeah, 15% is, Tiny.
I mean, we have people complain all the time, well, there's not signs anywhere, how do you know what things are? I mean, I get why, but it is very huge.
but it's conditional.
Right,
So, I mean, you can go to the city and say, I want my sign to be bigger or to, you
Yeah.
know,
but then it's a.
Planning and
process,
zoning and
it's people, and you go
Right.
through all that. I mean, it's,
I mean, we could ask to have it increased to 25% or something, I guess.
Right. And I think it's conditional for just that reason, where people can come to the city, because this was put in the ordinances back when there was some controversy over how much signage was being used and neighbors or businesses complaining that were next to one of the businesses were posting too large of a sign, they thought. So it came about because of those reasons. But it is conditional, which leaves, again, it open for discussion and negotiation.
Well, and it's interesting that it's 15% of a wall surface area. So depending on how big of a wall you have is how big of a sign you
Exactly.
can have. But I guess that makes sense. You wouldn't want your whole wall necessarily to be signage, maybe. I don't.
Somebody
It's a
might.
private piece of property. Should be able to make it whatever color you want.
So do you guys want to come back and revisit this one?
Sounds like.
Okay.
Hmm. But why does that only say a wall too, I wonder?
Suppose you could have one on every wall.
Or, but I mean, why not
A
a
wall
a sign
surface
that's sitting,
area.
that's the sign that's sitting out, away from your building? How, is
Uh-huh.
there any limit on what size that could be? Because this is only
Yeah.
addressing the wall.
It's true.
Like some of the ones that have their signage out on the deck on the waterfront. I
They're
mean,
not on.
It's not on a wall.
Okay.
Oh. That's.
Okay. So we can come back to that one. And then next is keeping of livestock. We're gonna have a lot to come back to. I hope you guys are ready. Keeping of livestock may be permitted provided the provisions set forth are satisfied. So those are conditional across the board, and there is under conditional uses, it does lay out for livestock. Let me see here. Thought there was a definition actually for livestock, and then it talks about under conditional use. 1872-020 general conditions F in approving conditional use for livestock is defined in section 1820-095. The commission may impose such conditions on the use as may be deemed necessary to ensure the proposal does and will continue to satisfy applicable review criteria. And it talks about lot size, livestock fencing, a drainage plan, manure storage and disposal plan. Up to 7 chickens, 6 hens, and 1 rooster or rabbits are allowed on properties of 5,000 square feet of property. Chicken or rabbit coops and enclosures are required and must meet a minimum setback of 25 feet from neighboring homes. Private stables and the keeping of larger animals not usually considered pets, including paddocks, or similar structures or enclosures utilized for keeping of such animals as an accessory use incidental to a primary residential use. And that continues on. Beekeeping is specific. We have had people go through a conditional use permit for beekeeping in the community, not in commercial business district, but certainly in the community. That is what is currently in the code for that. I got 1820. Not, there is a definition.
So, but we are only focusing on the commercial business district, and so I would agree that that should be.
Restricted, or not restricted, but conditional.
Is it even
I agree.
possible to adhere to that rule? So it has to be 25 feet from a residential. Or, yeah, from a home.
In the commercial business district,
Yeah.
might be tight.
I don't think you can do it.
I would agree with it being conditional, especially with the pavement downtown and the lot sizes. there's plenty of communicable diseases that even come from chickens, and the kids play in all those puddles down there. So maybe some restrictions on at least using like bedding instead of a bare earth type management for feces.
How my kids build their immune systems.
That's the way, yeah.
I just made an administrative note there to track out the definitions for that one, but well, that can be outside of the committee.
I like the rooster, one rooster. But I think that depends on how obnoxious that rooster is,
Yeah.
because there's some that do not know morning from night. Could be a problem.
Trust me, we've heard about it. Okay, then moving on, buildings of decks and docks within the Seldovia Small Boat Harbor, as defined by 1852-070D, beyond the mean high tide may be permitted if provisions set forth are met. And it's conditional use, I believe, because for the Seldovia Small Boat Harbor, it's specific. The beyond the mean height tideland is City of Seldovia. So there is a tidelands permit that's required. You do have to get permitting through the Army Corps or the Kenai River Center. There's quite a bit of stipulation to build a dock or deck within the harbor or any of the waters in the community.
Yeah, they all require a core permit beyond that 17 foot. So what I'm understanding by reading this, you can build up to the 17 foot mean high water mark. But beyond that, you've got to meet all the provisions set forth. Am I reading that correctly?
For the City of Seldovia, and that's a good point because I don't think, I'll have to look at the Army Corps regulations.
I think their jurisdiction starts at the mean high water
At the
mark,
meantime, I think you're right.
at least all the permits that I've gotten.
Yeah, you're right, because we've gone over that, like how close to the line is it, you know, you're right.
Yeah.
So. Is that
So
fine the way?
I guess my question is, we can build up to the 17 foot high water mark without conditions. And anything beyond that, we've got to meet whatever conditions set forth.
I don't think so. I think it's still, so building of decks and docks within the Seldovia Small Boat Harbor as defined. Beyond the mean high tide may be permitted if provisions are set forth or are met. So I think
I don't think that
in
references.
general.
Over there.
I can't hear you.
And I think that you're in the issue. No, we're not talking. Comes in about the floodplain is this.
1852.
That you have. You can stay away from the Army Corps with that, but then you get in, but then it's the floodplain folks that you have to apply for your permit for.
So what we're talking about here is within the small boat harbor.
Yeah, and it does specify that decks or docks in a section shall be constructed to allow for the docking of watercraft within the lot boundaries and in compliance with the provisions set forth in 1852.
And
So-
what is the small, where is that on the map? So what
Within
area
the-
does this cover?
Within the breakwater, so it's pretty much primarily a commercial business district.
Okay.
And in the code, it has the lot numbers that it references. We can pull them up and look at them in the map, but yeah.
Shall be the mean.
Means they can build up to the mean high tide.
Yeah, that's the way I'm interpreting it.
Yeah.
We can build up without any conditions. You can build up to the mean high water mark. And beyond that, you'd need conditional permit.
Right, you need a building permit to build, but yes, and then beyond
We
that.
gotta
you need a
meet whatever
conditional.
conditions,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Correct.
okay. No, I get it.
Okay. Okay. So if that's good for everybody, especially for that one, because then there are individuals who have tied lands outside of the small boat harbor, but inside the boat harbor, pretty sure that is all city beyond that point. So that tied land permit comes into place too. Few different things, oops, that are required. So last one, any use which causes excessive noise, odors, effluent, smoke, dust, vibrations, electrical interference, bright or flashing light, or other non-objectionable conditions which would interfere with the quiet enjoyment of a residential neighborhood that is not permitted.
So this is very interesting and that definitely needs to be reworded because I have been told on multiple occasions that I should not be allowed to have my lights. Based on this, I should not. So I think, and the interesting thing is it says quiet enjoyment of a residential neighborhood. I'm not in a residential neighborhood.
You got the Grinch running around?
I'm sure
Only your lights though?
I'm not running around, I promise.
Are you a Grinch? You are.
It wasn't Liz.
This is Allison.
Hey, Allison.
I'd like to add a comment. That land use is just so different than all the other land uses. It's kind of prescriptive. It's like a definition. It doesn't seem to jive with the rest of the table.
And it has lots more issues than just that because than just the lights. Because in a business district, I mean, we have bars, we have. It's not a residential neighborhood. And it does need to be addressed.
Like he said, you know, you've got the restaurant, they've got a smoker or a barbecue or whatever on the deck, you know, there's always,
No, and.
that's part of being
in
a
a
commercial,
business.
right?
Okay, we can visit
See, I
that.
like the bright lights downtown.
I mean, I get it if it's flashing in somebody's bedroom window.
Well, I've had boats come in the harbor and just light up my whole front of my house, coming into, you know, those big bright lights out on the. Whoa.
But you want them to be able to see.
I don't want to be able to see, but like.
It's very temporary.
Yeah.
So,
I would agree with all these statements. I mean, there's a spectrum, but if we're saying the primary objective of the commercial business district is not residential, it's to have a business, then why would we not permit, you know, the noise that goes along with that, you know, within parameters?
I think that there is a specific, there's a time, is that correct? Somewhere in one of the ordinances that with
Between
noise
certain
and
hours.
things
Mhm.
like
Yes.
that within,
For public safety.
Right.
Public health and safety.
right?
Anything else on that one? Well, then, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, I have had a few individuals outside of the meeting and even just prior to this meeting bring up other items that they would be interested in us pursuing while we're doing our research project. And I did start a sheet and since I have a little bit of time, if it's worthwhile to everybody. If there are things I can share real quick to give you an idea what that is, it's recommendations for future considerations related to the CB zoning, not directly related to that land use table. One being I've heard district name evaluation, remove commercial and focus on this business district. Examples could be central business district, waterfront business district, etc. That would be a little bit of a deep dive because I think we would have to visit that for our waterfront commercial residential, our commercial residential, and what that means. But while we are preparing this information to bring back, that's something that we could look at is really what that difference is between commercial and business. And if there is a need to update those titles. That would, where the group is at with that.
But I don't know, my question would be that is this pertaining to what we're supposed to be doing now?
It'll be a whole package app. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Nobody online could hear about it. I apologize. So in the interest of time, if you guys are interested, because we have time, if you're interested in going over any thoughts or ideas pertaining to the commercial business district and recommended changes. So yes, it would be if the commercial business name of the zone is not meeting what is the expectation is due to the fact that commercial can have more connotations than business, like in speaking with the borough. If you have a building that's a residential purpose, even if you're running it as a business for nightly rentals, long-term residential rental is still considered residential. It's not commercial. So I have heard it mentioned that potentially we're doing a disservice by having the commercial wording in our code versus specifying that it's a business district. Something that we can look into if that's in the interest of the group. I know we talked about mobile food truck or mobile business section. So I made a note of that. And then while in speaking, hopefully I'm not over speaking for you. You can bring it up your if you'd like. And just before the meeting was talking about the incidental secondary uses in the commercial business district, specifying that they have to have a business first before they reside in it. And that might be a difficulty if somebody is trying to move in and open up a business and a warning period for penalties. So he can speak more to that if you'd like, but just some examples that I've been taking notes as we go. If there are things that are not specific to the land use table that are on your mind, and we don't have to do it at this meeting, but as they come up, let us know. We can, since we're doing a deep dive, we can add that to our list of information that we are researching.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that, Heidi, and like my concerns, maybe I can email so that everybody knows where I'm coming from on it, and then I'd like to hear other people's ideas of what they're wanting to look at too.
And the commercial business district, they might have, I don't know if other people brought it up, but it was one of my comments, what is the purpose of having the word commercial in business district? That's what because we have a commercial district. And there are things that whether that word can be misconstrued. So it wasn't to take out commercial out of commercial district. It was just to take the word commercial out of the commercial business district. Okay. Okay. And it was for discussion. I mean, I'm sure other people have opinions about that. Right. And so it wasn't changing all, at least what I was asking about wasn't changing all of them. Okay. It was just changing the one for commercial business district into just business district. And what the ramifications of that would be, and a positive thing, a negative thing, because they are residents, buildings.
Right, there's mixed, it's a mixed district with residential and commercial buildings.
Okay, Allison, did you have a comment?
I was thinking I like the idea of just calling it the business district, but I guess I need a better definition of what's wrong with commercial. And then there's the waterfront commercial residential, and there's commercial residential. There's a lot of places that are commercial, and so I guess I need to know what commercial means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Marcia. I think we had discussed at one point about maybe some of the areas needed to be the names changed, the titles changed, just because, like you're saying, there's so many of them that are rhetorical. I mean, they're the same words, they're just organized differently.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to keep them straight and that they mean different things in different areas of town. And there's some that can be combined. I mean, they don't need to be separate things, but that's a huge, thing to take on, I think.
This is Vivian. Marcia, were you talking about changing the names of the different zones around town?
Right. And
Oh.
I think that's, to just remove commercial from the commercial business district, I agree, because it is rhetorical to say basically the same word twice.
Yeah. And, back years ago, when the city council was dealing with this NP&Z, central business district was one of the terms we were using. So defining what commercial means and see if it has any real purpose to define our business district would be important. Otherwise, I'd be fine with central business district because it's identifying it as just that, central business district. And each one of the zones around town, there's a lot of them, but they're were set up for their own specific definition, or what's defined, what you can do there. That's a big picture to look at. So this recommendation for future considerations, Heidi, is if the group wanted to attack these bullet points.
Well, yes and no. I'm sorry, and I knew this was gonna be a big pie to bite. So maybe it would be helpful to separate out some of these things. For instance, the name could be something that the group wants to, yes, you can tackle anything you want. The other thing is we're gonna prepare a document that is gonna go to the planning commission. And there may be things that are gonna take more work, more time, that don't fall under the scope of the group. For instance, other district name changes and combining districts. So that in that instance, it could just be as simple as the group saying, there's a recommendation that the planning commission evaluate district name changes and overall zoning. And that you don't have to make that decision or determination yourselves.
Right.
If you want to refer that back to the commission.
Right. And I will say that city council sent this whole item to P&Z some time ago, and a couple of those points that the city council was trying to deal with, and then P&Z, and then developed a subcommittee. And that was the incidental secondary uses have to have a business first before residing in. We've never pushed that fact. We've let people get the property and then get a business going in it. So that's something that the city council kind of pushed on to P&Z to do some identification of it, and the warning periods of penalties. And penalties just in general, having that discussion with a group, what does that even mean? We haven't applied any penalties whatsoever, and there may not be any conditions that we have to apply penalties. But those two items were the ones that the city council, we were just shrugging our heads at, trying to figure out we need more input, put it to P&Z, and I think they came out feeling the same way, and that's why the subcommittee's together for those two reasons, which I'm not sure if we've addressed or not.
No, I think we talked about that when we first started going over the
Yeah.
table, that before you can even go there, you have to have a definition of what in business. And there is no definition for that, so that's kind of, but we are gonna talk about that, right?
Yeah, and I can even, I know we kind of talked about it in the table, but I can list it separately here. Definition for what in business means. Because I've heard that come up multiple times, so really just even if it's a chapter, or it's not a chapter, but a section on what that entails, or a well-worded definition of what that expectation is. Okay, I added that one to the list. Are there any others that come to people's mind, just off the top of your mind, and please don't think that you can't let us know outside the meeting. If you just email or call Liz or myself, we can add items to the list as well. And it'll just be a running tally of things that, even if it's not.
So these are things we would discuss after we do, I mean, because we're here, keep saying this, we're here with a purpose to do
Yes,
a
so,
thing.
yes. So for instance, the penalties and definition of what a business means and the zoning does relate directly back to commercial business district. So we would present information back to the subcommittee to review and provide a recommendation to the planning commission.
Okay, but are we, I'm sorry, are we evaluating the entire commercial business district, or are we just evaluating this certain, I thought we were here with 18 point, whatever it was that we were supposed to be working on. And that's our goal. That's our objective in being here.
As the land uses.
Yep.
Specific.
And definition.
And we're getting, I mean, we get outside of it a lot.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm coming from with every time I say, you know, where are we going with this? Why does this pertain to us? Because I think that we should do what we're supposed to do. And then if we want to, or if the planning and zoning or the city council wants us to move on and explore other areas, then, you know, we can come back as this subcommittee and work on it more, or they can build a different subcommittee, however they want to do it. But for us, being the subcommittee that we are, we have a job that we're supposed to be doing. And I think that we should stick to our job.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the job started with the draft ordinance, which did address the entire commercial business district
Okay, that's what I meant.
chapter. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so
So that the commercial business district as a whole is the job. 'Cause that was the draft.
okay.
But if you guys don't interpret it that way, please let me know. That was my interpretation.
Well, it's all part and parcel. It's kind of hard to, you know, like when it comes to penalties or the business versus the residents, which comes first, it's all part and parcel of the district we're talking about. So I don't see how we could leave one out and not affect the other.
And if there comes to things that really just are outside the scope, or there isn't enough time, you know, that's definitely a time to say, we're just going to refer this back to the planning commission. You don't have to solve the city's problems in a matter of months. This will have more of a process outside of this committee, but this is definitely a really great start of considerations for change. That's something.
Yeah, I just don't want our scope to get so big that we can't accomplish what we're set out to do in the amount of time.
Yeah, I think you're right, Marcy. I think we need to always remember that, and they say, are we really getting off? Which might be something we need to get off on, or maybe not. So I think it's a good idea to always keep honing it in, and if, like you said, if we need another subcommittee, we need another subcommittee.
Yeah, I mean, once we're, you know, done with our objective, there's nothing to say that the planning and zoning or city council can't come and say, you know, that worked really great, let's do this. But it's not the place of this subcommittee necessarily to explore that issue.
And so as these things come up, because they do come up, we have been writing them to the side. So like on the land use table, definitely things have been brought up that impact other districts and not the commercial business district. And I think that's similar to the refer back to the commission on here is you know, there are items to note that you can move along from. So if it does come up, we'll write it down so we don't lose track of it internally and then move along. If that works for the commission, we can continue to hopefully use these tools to just document and then continue on your mission.
Yes.
Is there anything else related directly to the commercial business district that comes to mind at this time? Otherwise, if they do come up in the future, definitely let us know.
Is there anything else that we are supposed to work on tonight? Sorry, I think that was it, right? Is there any public comment?
We have no members of the public with us. this
Okay,
time.
no members of the public with us tonight. I move to adjourn the meeting.
May I make one comment before we do that is, we were going to discuss when our next meeting would be. And so, there was a recommendation brought forward that we could either do a meeting in December, but this is a kind of a research heavy project. And do you remember the date? Otherwise we could have our next meeting. I think it was January 11th or 10th. January 10th, and give us some time to, and the committee some time to research some of these topics that we brought back for further discussion.
So we're gonna take a break in December, is that what you're saying?
I'm just basically trying to gauge the committee on what your preference is.
So and then in that.
Yeah,
period of
Vivian,
time-
January works for me.
January works for me.
Yeah, and then with the stipulation that maybe we need to look at extending out 1 month since we're going to be kind of
Right.
waiting.
That
a
will
month,
take that
just
out
so
of our
that
schedule.
We can still meet, we
Right,
said we would do by the time
right.
we're gonna do it, will need to be extended by 30 days or whatever.
Will that work for the Planning and Zoning Commission? For our final report?
We can verify that with them, but I don't think that would be an issue. It's not extremely time sensitive, and I think the goal is to have a whole rounded recommendation.
Okay.
But we'll verify that, and if there's a issue, bring it back.
Is there anything that we're supposed to be working towards separately that we bring together as the group then during this break?
I believe at this time, if you guys want to continue to deep dive, the more it's welcome. If you come up with ideas that you would like us to continue to explore, but at this point, it would be more staff heavy in pulling those state regulations,
Okay.
the building code regulations, and all of this feedback that we just received, you know, some definition examples, trying to do some combining, and provide that as an example back to you guys to then make recommendations on.
Got it.
Is that fair enough? Unless you guys want to be diving in deep.
Heidi, I didn't hear most of that, but it sounded good from here.
We're gonna start.
I'm not gonna ask you to repeat it.
We need to make him move instead of having him on the other side of the room. He needs to be. Because he can't hear.
Or you're gonna let us know when a time available to start over in January, or.
Or do you want to set it
You
tonight?
wanna just send us an email and say what days are good for you or whatever, I don't know,
Yeah, we were looking at a date of January 10th, kind of in keeping with the Wednesdays meetings that we've been having. Does anybody in line have any comments on taking a break till January?
This is Vivian. I'm okay with going on to January. And I've got to run, so I'm going to say good night to everybody.
Good night, Vivian.
Okay, good.
All right, so I think we have a consensus on that, so.
We can adjourn the meeting now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. We gotta go feed my grandkids
Thank you, everyone.
before they chew on Josh's leg.